On a weekend where Spurs beat Burnley, Chelsea lose to Palace and both Arsenal and Manchester United drop points, the gap at the top is trimmed to just 7 points. We couldn't still, could we? This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, Tottenham, no one can stop them.
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Please don't forget you can subscribe to the show as always via iTunes or Acast and get every new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr, and for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms you can head to our brand new website of e-Spurs.com. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight we'll be talking about the textbook away performance away to Burnley, which saw us win the game 2-0. We'll be previewing Swansea to come on Wednesday night, and we'll be taking your questions for tonight's panel as always. Before we talk all things Tottenham tonight, let's introduce tonight's panel. Talking us through the next hour, I'm pleased to say we've got Jason back with us. Jace, how are you?
All right, mate. Good to be back.
And good to have you back. And pleased to announce tonight we've got Tom Allnutt joining us. Tom is a Press Association journalist covering Spurs. Tom, how are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure as always. We've got Will from the Armed Forces Spurs Official Supporters Club. Will, how are you?
Evening, Ricky. All good, thanks very much.
And finally we've got Ian back with us. Ian, how are you?
I'm very well, Rick, and nice to be back on the show, and nice to welcome our two new guests to the show this evening.
Indeed. Right, just some administration before we start. You may have noted that Jason went and interviewed last week one of the old Tottenham Hotspur legends, John Duncan. That interview is still available on our YouTube and iTunes channel. There is a special competition going at the moment where you can win a signed programme. All you've got to simply do... Jace, do you want to give out the question again?
Yeah, there's a question in there. Who did John Duncan score his very first Spurs hat-trick against? And the winner of that question, if they use hashtag John Duncan Prize, gets a signed programme from that game.
Lovely, Jace. And like I say, that competition is still running, guys, so get yourselves involved in that. And also still running at the moment, there is a petition on change.org to get Darren Anderton a testimonial at Spurs. And like I say, Darren Anderton, former player, played for us for many years. And like I say, that's a really, really good cause. If you guys can get behind that, that'll be great. Let's talk about the weekend. A 2-0 win over Burnley. Textbook away performance. Let's come to you first, Will. And before we ask you about the game, do you just want to give a bit of briefing of what your involvement is for Spurs?
Yeah, sure, Ricky. Well, currently I'm the chairman of the Armed Forces Spurs. We're officially affiliated and recognised by Tottenham. What we do is we provide, it's two ways. We provide Tottenham with ceremonial support when they have Remembrance Sundays and minute silences. The troops that you see alongside the pitch are leading out the players for the Guard of Honour, and they're all signed up members of this Supporters Association. So I'm the coordinator for that aspect of it. Obviously, we do all the supporters activities such as tickets and group bookings, but also what we do is a lot of community stuff as well. So a lot of the war memorials that you see in the Tottenham area, then we have a deal with Haringey Council where to put something back into the community. Then we provide guys down there to clean the war memorials in the area. It's good PR for Spurs. They get a couple of players down there. So all sorts of activities from charity stuff, providing the parade along the pitch that you'll see, as well as getting the guys the tickets as well. And we've got about 150 members, Army, Navy and Air Force, all of whom are Spurs fans and currently serving all over the world.
Fantastic. And I understand you're involved in the Poppies as well, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. On the match before the 11th of November, Spurs are very good. They're very pro-Armed Forces. They'll get up to about 20 or 30 Army, Navy and Air Force alongside the pitch, leading the team out. And we'll have a bit of involvement in trying to raise money for the Royal British Legion and the Poppy Bill. They've been great the last 5-6 years or so and really helped promote it. This year's programme drummed up a lot of support and a lot of financial support for the Poppy Appeal as well.
Fantastic, brilliant. We're going to come to the game in a second. Just bringing you in, Tom, just to give your kind of affiliation to the club, or in terms of what you do in terms of the Press Association. Do you just want to give the guys out there a background as to what you cover in terms of Spurs?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a sports writer for the Press Association. I cover primarily Tottenham, but London football, so most of the other kind of London Premier League clubs as well. And the Press Association, if people don't know, it's like a it's a bit like Reuters. It's a news agency in the UK, and so we cover everything like a newspaper would, and then newspapers basically use our stuff, and the broadcasters use our stuff. So it's like a resource, I guess, for other outlets to use as they want.
Okay, fantastic, lovely. We're going to bring it on to the game on Saturday. Let's go first to you, Jace. We've cut the lead at the top to 7 points. It was a pretty much textbook away performance. We couldn't still be in this title race, could we?
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to bring title race into the first sentence, Rick.
Sorry.
You know, there's 5 games to go before we even get to the 5th if. So let's just concentrate on Swansea. No, it was an excellent result. I think, first half was quite scrappy, wasn't it? Neither side really getting themselves on top. But second half, particularly once we got that first goal, it opened up and we could have won more convincingly. But an excellent performance. We all said it wouldn't be easy up there, especially on the back of that international break. And just delighted to go and get those 3 points, because it was as the rest of the weekend panned out, it was an excellent 3 points.
Was an excellent 3 points. And bringing you in, Ian, I understand you was at the game, wasn't you, on the Saturday?
Yeah, I was up there, Rick. Took the train up and met up with the lads before the game. I thought, echo what Jason said, very scrappy. It was almost like very congested in the midfield from what I saw in the first half. And of course, we had that worrying injury to Wanyama, and then that awful injury to Harry Winks. We had to change it around just before half time, and in the second half, we come out and I think that once we got the first goal, I don't think the result was ever in doubt.
Yeah, it was a great performance. And bringing you in, Will, what did you make of the game itself?
They took their time to get the momentum going. First half, it was a little on the scrappy side, but they held their own. And Burnley at home, they've had a great record recently. So actually, for us to get 3 points there, it was a pretty good day all in all, especially given the fact that we've got the injuries that we've got. Pretty chuffed with the result. The first half was a bit of a grind, but second half, we absolutely bossed it. And like one of the guys said, it should have been more goals.
Yep, should have been. Coming to you, Tom. Eric Dyer, player who's been pretty much known as the utility man now at Spurs. He's covered centre-back, right-back, central defensive midfield. What have you made of Eric Dyer this season? There's been quite a lot of heavy criticism on it at times. Is it fair in your opinion?
Well, as you say, he plays in so many different positions for Spurs. I think the fact that he's been able to adjust so well to being a centre-half and being now in a back three for Tottenham, I think it speaks volumes about his ability as a player. There was a bit of speculation last week about Manchester United as well, and he obviously didn't let that affect him. He's a professional guy, Eric Dyer. Whenever you speak to him, he's very level-headed, and he comes across as quite a thoughtful kind of guy. I think he's quite intelligent. He's a good leader in the dressing room. I think he's really valuable to Spurs at the moment.
Yeah, he really, really is. And coming to you, Jace, he's the 10th different Tottenham player to score this season, so that tells you just how much we are spreading the goals around. Is it no coincidence that one of his best performances come when he's put back into that kind of central midfield role, which seems to be his preference? I
don't know if it's really as simple to say that. I think he would have probably coasted through the game if he'd have been in the back in the normal way. And his goal certainly wasn't as a result of him playing in midfield, was it? As in having gone up for a set piece. So, we know that his distribution is better than Wanyama's from midfield, but you can't really argue against the form that Victor Wanyama's shown in midfield, and how many times has Wanyama been our man of the match? So, yep. It's about that whole team thing. They all have to fit in, where they're needed. And I think, as I've said a few times, whilst maybe Eric Dyer hasn't had his as good a season as he did last year, he's still been a part of that incredibly tight defence, which has been shuffled around various times this season. So, I think some of the criticism this season of him has been a little bit harsh. Bearing in mind, as I say, he's been the one constant, almost in that back with Toby missing and Jan missing and Rose missing and we've even seen Lloris missing. So
Jace, you wouldn't go along the lines of that you don't think it was more of a standout performance from him on Saturday? Because to me, he looked like so much more comfortable just playing that midfield role. Like I say, that was the success of last season. Would you not go along the lines of that? I know it's difficult because Wanyama's been brilliant.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He was certainly a better player on Saturday than he has been. But all I mean was his goal didn't come as a consequence through playing him in midfield. And such was the type of football that Burnley play. I think he'd have been just as comfortable if he'd have played in the back as a back three. I think it's too simplistic to say that his best game of the season was purely because he was in midfield. Sometimes you've got to look at the opposition and the fact that we're controlling the game anyway.
Yeah, no, okay, fair enough. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it on to you, Ian. Another player amongst the goals on Saturday was Heung-min Son. That's 15 goals and 7 assists for the season. It's remarkable when you consider he's only started 24 games, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very remarkable. Although there were times on Saturday where he was, quite wasteful. Just before he scored, there was an opportunity for him to pass the ball across to Dele Alli, who was in acres of space, and he elected to go for a shot. And sometimes with Heung-min Son, I just wish he was a little bit more unselfish with regard to his play in the box. But then I suppose if he doesn't take a shot and it gets cleared, then we all have a go at him for that. But no, it is a really good sort of like return from him, especially when he'd flown all the way back from South Korea on international duty not so long ago in the week. So. Yeah, good performance all in all, Rick.
It was indeed. And bringing it to you, Will, I mean, is he proving why he's the perfect sub? Because he always seems to make a difference when coming off the bench, but it's something that he can't seem to do when starting games.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you look at some of the impact he's had when Kane's been on. He's come off and he's played extremely well, getting the goals late on. He started the game on a couple of occasions. He's not had the impact that we'd hoped for. Coming on, I think maybe it's the fresh pair of legs. Burnley were a little bit tired then, but perhaps that's how he works. And I think back to the days of Ronnie Rosenthal and the super sub days when he came on. Perhaps he's destined to be an impact sub. Hopefully not. I think the guy's got a lot of talent. Agree with the fact that he should be a little bit more aware of who's around him to create opportunities for others. But certainly when Kane's fit, I do see him as a bit of an impact sub type player.
Bringing it to you, Tom, are you quite surprised that Son's accepted this bit part role? I mean, he does. We're right in saying in the summer there was some attraction there, wasn't there, for a few clubs, Tom?
Yeah, there's definitely some interest. I think it remains to be seen if he accepts it again this summer. I think he realises that he's obviously not first choice, and that's always going to be the problem at Tottenham. Any striker that comes in is going to have to basically accept that they're going to be number two behind Kane, obviously. I like Son. I think he. You look at purely his stats, obviously, he's got a great goal record and assists as well. He contributes in that area of the pitch a lot. But the problem, as I think we've said, it's just his efficiency sometimes. He's sort of kind of player who needs maybe 2 or 3 chances to score one, and he doesn't necessarily always keep the ball well enough. I think someone like Pochettino, he's a very kind of efficiency kind of manager. He doesn't sort of like to carry anyone. He doesn't really do luxury players. And Son can sometimes be a little bit in and out, a bit patchy. If you get him on a great day, he can be fantastic. You get him on an off day, he can be, one of the most frustrating players on the pitch. So, I mean, I think he's had a fairly decent season for Spurs. It will be interesting to see in the summer if they get some more interest and clubs maybe offer the kind of big money that they might have paid for him. That whether or not they'll take that or not, I think we'll have to see, because I think he'll realise now that he's had a couple of years where he hasn't played so much, and it's getting to that point where he might have to make a decision.
Yeah, like I say, great record coming off the bench, not as so much starting. So, like you say, I mean, in terms of the summer, that might be a situation for the player and the club to evaluate. Let's bring it on to you, Jace. Moussa Dembele didn't start the game. I think, are we right in having a little bit of a concern? Obviously, it looks like Harry Winks, the news coming out today. We'll catch up with Tom as well. I think Tom was at the press conference that Harry Winks looks likely to be out for the rest of the season. Obviously, we also lost Wanyama, which doesn't seem to be more of a serious injury. Is it a massive concern, the fact that we haven't got those options in midfield available to us potentially?
Well, it definitely becomes a concern as more and more players drop out, and there's less obviously naturally to come in, isn't there? I think with Moussa as well, that we know that he gets through about 70 minutes and then he either fades or he gets tired, and particularly when you've got 2 fixtures a week, which obviously we'll have this week. We'll have it when we have the rearranged game with Palace, and we'll have it when we have the rearranged game with Leicester. So there's certainly going to be 3 fixtures we've got to muddle our way through. But this is the chance, isn't it? He's waited a long time. He's got all the critics on his back, Moussa Sissoko, and he'll have a chance to play rather than out wide. He'll have a chance to play as a central midfield player, where some of the people who have defended him have said, you know, that's his best position, and it's up to him now to show. I mean, he had a great chance to open his account, didn't he, at Burnley, and he slashed at that with a total lack of composure. But I mean, Ian will know more about his performance. I think from those that were there who tried to be objective, they said other than that, he actually played okay. Nothing brilliant. Let's not go over the top with his performance, but by all accounts, he did the job in midfield that he was picked, or that he was brought on to do. And it's up to him now, isn't it? He's got 9 games to really, or he'll have 4 or 5 of those games anyway, with a chance to show what he can do in his best position, and he has to just grab it and show that the 30 million quid wasn't a total waste.
Yeah, he does. I mean, like I say, Dembele, his pass completion second half was incredible. 98% of his 44 passes. That is it's a ridiculous amount. In terms of the conversion rate there, it's crazy. Bringing it to you, Ian. We will have a quick word on Sissoko. You was there. What did you make of his second half performance?
I do, I do agree with Jason. It was reasonably efficient. There was, sometimes his first touch and his control is frustrating. Sometimes he just gives the ball away. But yeah, overall it was efficient. Bringing it back to Moussa Dembele, I don't know whether anybody caught it, so I didn't think they showed it on Match of the Day. But there was an absolutely sublime bit of skill in the second half from Dembele, where he did that usual sort of like double pirouette that got him out of some difficulty. The man is just a Rolls Royce of a midfield player. We're very lucky to have him.
Bringing it on to you, Will. I mean, let's ask you this one. I mean, Spurs, we haven't lost to a team outside the top 6 of the Premier League at all this season. We're 7 games without Harry Kane. We don't look to be struggling at the moment. What do you think? Have we got enough in terms of squad depth to get us through these next couple of games?
I think with the injuries we're carrying at the moment, we have just enough. I think if we start picking up any more injuries, we're going to start showing a little bit of thin around the edges. I mean, already going into Burnley game, we had a lot of injuries. We had our second choice left back and right back in because we had Rose and Walker out. Again, we had obviously Kane's out. So, yeah, we've got the strength in depth to carry a few injuries, which we're already doing. We're already grinding out results, keeping clean sheets. Winks has gone. All right, he doesn't usually start, but he's still a decent player, so he has an impact as a substitute. I think if we start any more injuries, then we are going to start suffering. Hopefully, I had news possibly Kane could be back for the Arsenal game. Rose isn't a million miles away from fitness. So hopefully they will start trickling back in, fresh pair of legs towards the back end of the season. And yeah, certainly looking at the fixtures that we got on paper, then it's not a difficult run-in. We said that at the end of last season as well, didn't we? So yeah, who knows? We've got some good some good fixtures coming up. If we can grind that result away at Swansea, we've got a couple of home fixtures coming up, chucking amongst that the semi-final. And all in all, I see a strong finish. I think we have got the strength in depth there, just as long as we don't pick up any more injuries than we've got now.
Yeah, it's frightening. You look at back at the injury list this season: Dembele, Dele Alli, Lloris, Kane, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Rose, Lamela, Wanyama, Winks. Like I say, that's the injuries we've picked up this season. And what fascinates me is a great stat here: Lloris, Walker, Alderweireld, Vertonghen and Rose, they've only started together in just 5 out of the last 29 Premier League games this season. I mean, when you're relying as a club on the first 11, you've got to say Spurs, the way Pochettino has managed it, has been incredible. I'm bringing it to you, Tom. Was you at Pochettino's press conference today?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, earlier today. Yeah.
What did you kind of get from it? Did you kind of have the kind of understanding that Winks doesn't look like he will be playing again this season, or was Poch again keeping cards close to his chest? I
think the word he used was it would be difficult for him to play again this season. I think most indications from the club are that he probably won't. We've got now only 5 or 6 weeks left. So I mean, even if it is slightly less serious than they fear, I think by the time he comes back and trains and gets match fit again, I think there's just not enough time for him. So it seems like I think probably the season's over for Winks, which is disappointing for him, obviously, because he was making a rare Premier League start, and everyone knows he's had a great season this season, and but I'm sure he'll be right there in Pochettino's plans for next season.
Yeah, and I need to ask you, Tom, as well. Rose and Kane, what's your What do you think in terms of time scale for those guys? Can we have them back for the Arsenal, the Cup semi-final? What do you think?
I think Rose is slightly behind Kane. It seems. I think I would. It's always difficult with Tottenham because they're very cagey about any kind of injury news, and they hate putting any kind of time frames or anything. I think Pochettino got a bit stung earlier on in the season when he got a few things wrong, so they've decided now not to say anything about anything when it comes to injuries. But I think Kane, I think I would say they're fairly optimistic that Kane will make the semi. I mean, I think they were really pleased with how his sort of treatment's gone, and it looks like I don't know if he'll be back in the next sort of maybe couple of weeks, that kind of thing. Rose, less sure. I mean, he saw a specialist last week, and he seems to have had a couple of setbacks in his recovery. So it's difficult to say. Pochettino said today that he was still confident he'd play again this season, but whether or not Arsenal or Chelsea comes a bit soon, I'm not sure.
I have to wait and see. Like I say, two very important players to Spurs. I think if you ask any Spurs fans out there, we need these guys back for the big games, for the Arsenal, for the Chelsea games. Really imperative. We'll just bring it back again to Saturday's game. Let's bring it to you, Jace, again. Christian Eriksen, again, for me, a performance there. He played really well. Could go unnoticed by some. Is it going unnoticed for you, or are you seeing what the guys bringing to the table at the moment?
I think certainly the run since probably that Hull game just before Christmas, when he was excellent in that game. He scored twice in that game, didn't he, if I remember rightly? I think from that moment on, he's got that bit of consistency into his game, and we're seeing him have more and more influence. And that little triangle, as I've talked about in previous weeks, with Ali, Eriksen and Kane, and there was even one or two signs of it starting to work there. The way that we scored the goal, it was Eriksen that won the ball and then found Ali, and it was Ali to Son, and then it was, I think, Eriksen fed Son when he should have passed to Ali. So perhaps there's little signs of a triangle coming even without Kane. But I think, as I say, I think since Hull we've seen, he's probably been at his best level for 75-80% of those games, and I don't think anyone can argue with his contribution, certainly over the past 4 months.
Yeah. Coming to you, Will, are you seeing a pick-up in his form, Christian Eriksen?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a slow starter. Picked up a lot of criticism at the start of the season, certainly amongst the pundits on TV as well as the fans as well, kind of noticing a bit of a dip off. But as we approached Christmas and certainly in the new year, he has been excellent. He's set up a lot and he's really showing the determination that kind of made him one of the favourites at White Hart Lane anyway. So yeah, he's back to his best now after a pretty slow start. But no, he's up there and he's providing a lot of the drives forward that we're really needing at the moment, especially with all the injuries that we have got, minus the runs from Rose and Walker that we certainly on Saturday. So yeah, Eriksen's been phenomenal, certainly this year, and he's back to his best.
Yeah. Ian, coming to you, I want to make a point. Dele Alli, I mean, it wasn't to be his day in front of goal, didn't do very well, but beautifully weighted ball for Heung-min Son to make the game safe. Those little parts to his game, do they sometimes go amiss? Because he wasn't at his best Saturday, but he still made a contribution to the game. Yeah,
I totally agree, Rick. I was hoping you'd raise this question, because what I saw on Saturday was a young man who's slowly starting to develop that sort of Berbatov-esque type approach to his game, where he plays the game in his own pace. Berbatov used to often sort of like go unnoticed with the amount of work he did and how easy he made the game look, and I saw signs of that on Saturday. And as you said, that ball across for Son's goal and our second was nothing short of spectacular. To put it through the defender's legs as well. And I just thought we're really another player that we are so lucky to have, and to have picked him up from NK Dons like we did is a phenomenal piece of business, and I think he'll go on to be one of the best players of a generation if he carries on the way he's going.
Fingers crossed we can keep hold of him, Ian. Like you said, cracking young player. Coming to you, Tom, I want to ask you about Vincent Janssen. Got his opportunity on Saturday. How do you feel he done?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there on Saturday. As you know, I was at Arsenal City. I can't really comment on his performance of the weekend. But I mean, we all know he's had a tough time, Janssen. But I do think in the last sort of couple of weeks, obviously he's just sort of showing signs. Maybe again he's picking up his confidence. I think he had a real sort of dip. His lowest sort of came around sort of January, February time. Every time he came on, he looked like he was really short of confidence. But he's just picking up again now a bit, and I just wonder, maybe I remember that season when Pavlyuchenko kind of finished the season with a lot of very important goals and performances, which put Tottenham in the top 4 that year. And I just wonder maybe if Janssen might just be able to finish the season strongly as well, and that might just help him go into the summer and next season with a sort of more positive mindset if Tottenham decide to keep him.
Do you feel from a Spurs perspective he'll be in next season, Tom? What do you think? Or do you think we may look to upgrade in that area?
I think it's very difficult. Pochettino said a couple of weeks ago that it's very difficult these days to find a really top quality second striker. You look at the other teams in the Premier League, Chelsea with Batshuayi and City, maybe before Jesus came in, had Iheanacho and even United, struggling with Ray Rashford. No one's really necessarily got that kind of 3 or 4 top quality strikers that maybe people did used to have 4 or 5 years ago, just because I think everyone relies on that kind of number one striker these days. So I'm not sure Tottenham are going to go out. Maybe people are hoping they are, I don't know, but I'm not sure they're going to go out and spend 30, 40 million on a real top quality second forward. I don't really see that happening. They might think they can upgrade on Janssen still, and they might cut their losses on him, but I sort of feel that he's young enough. They might just think, we'll give him another season. Hope he adjusts.
Verdict for you on Nkudu. He made the bench Saturday, didn't get on. Has he got a Spurs future in your opinion?
Well, I mean, another young one, so maybe they might think that they'll keep him, whereas Janssen perhaps shown a bit more, that he's got a bit more game time here and there. I just think Nkudu hasn't done enough. He hasn't really done anything, obviously, in training to kind of suggest that he should be even getting in the squad sometimes, let alone the starting lineup. I'm not sure he was Pochettino's man when they brought him in. And I don't think Pochettino has shown much interest in making him his man either. So I would be surprised if he was still at the Lane in August. Yeah,
and I mean, right in saying with Clinton NG at the moment, I mean he is still technically, if I'm right in saying, he's still a Spurs player, isn't he? So what in terms of that, is there still a possibility for him to come back to play for Spurs, or do you think that again is very unlikely?
I think it's unlikely. Yeah, I think it's unlikely. I think they've probably moved on from NG, and they'll seal out the deal in the summer. It's probably what will happen, I would think.
Yeah, interesting. Jay's coming to you. I mean, Janssen, would you like to see the club keep him? Is there a player in there for you?
I don't particularly want to write him off after 1 year. Still, he made a contribution to the performance on Saturday. I think he was certainly more involved in the game than he had been when he previously played. But still, for me, he's got to get efforts in and shots in at goal as well. And it's all right leading the line, but I still have that worry that I've always had is, he's got to play more side on. And I think until he can learn to do that, he'll continue to struggle for us. But I'd be surprised if they write him off after one season. But he'll certainly, I think, will need that really good pre-season. And I suppose, it depends how much money becomes available in the summer, and do they need to raise some funds to go and buy their preferred choices. And if they do, then it may well be that they'll think, okay, well, let's take 12, 13 million if we can get it for him. But I hope they don't write him off, but there's still a lot of improvement he needs to do.
Is indeed. And bringing it to you, Will, just summing up the Burnley game, I mean, Saturday's defeat was Burnley's first home defeat at Turf Moor by 2 or more goals in the Premier League since 2014. That was a big win, wasn't it, really, Saturday as a whole? We look back, I mean, I know Burnley, I'd say they're not a great side, but in terms of that kind of stat, it just shows how big a win that was.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a great record there. Plus, with the injuries that we're carrying at the moment, you listed that big injury list that we had earlier. The guys that we were missing, some real first teamers out for this weekend, to grind out a tough first half and then finish them off with a fairly clinical second half. If you look at the stats of the game, we absolutely bossed it. So yeah, it was a top result, and they got some. They've taken a few scalps this season. I think they got a good 3 points against Liverpool not so long ago. So yeah, to come away from Turf Moor, clean sheet, 2 goals, 3 points, and especially this weekend when Chelsea dropped points as well. So yeah, all in all, a great result at a pretty tough place to go to, especially recently. So yeah, everyone's got to be pretty happy with the result.
First win up there for 41 years?
Yes, yeah, it just says everything. I'm bringing it to you, Ian, at the moment. I mean, we've won more points than any other Premier League team in the calendar year of 2017, 26 points. I mean, like I said, the form has been incredible this season, hasn't it? I mean, sometimes you forget how good it's been, don't you, with sometimes the international breaks and stuff, but really good form at the moment.
Yeah, and then it's interesting because, and I quite like this, the fact that, everybody's still talking about the Liverpools and the Man Cities, and I'm just thinking, you carry on talking about those two, because, I think what we've achieved with, as Will said, the dreadful injury list is nothing short of miraculous. And if somebody like Pochettino can't be acknowledged as one of the top coaches in world football, then there's something wrong with world football, in my opinion. So, I think that we've been very, very well drilled, and we've gone out and we've got some really, really good, performances under our belts this season. And, going back to your opening statement to Jason, my views on title races.
Yeah, nothing is impossible, but we shall wait to see. I've been told not to get too excited, but we shall wait to see. And finally, just the last stat of today, really, we're already level on points with the same team which qualified for the Champions League in the 2010-2011 season. Tom, from a journalist perspective, covering Spurs, have you seen the club as good as what it is now in terms of the healthy position of the squad?
No, I don't think so. Not for a long time. Some people might say that they preferred Redknapp's team just because it had that certain kind of swagger and unpredictability about it. But for me, overall, you look at the club and the squad right now, that the way that they've got such a clear identity, the way they play, and the way the players are so convinced by Pochettino's methods. Everyone's pulling in the same direction, and even if they don't win the league this year, I think they've made really big progress even on last season. Even when last season was such a good season, even this season I think you can see they've made strides. And okay, they might not win the league, but if they can finish second, third, even fourth, to get in the Champions League back to back would be a massive achievement. I think there's a slight risk now that almost they don't win the league, it'll be seen as another disappointment. But just that consistency to be in the top 4 2 years on the bounce, I think would be pretty remarkable for Spurs, especially when you consider the amount of money that all the teams around them are spending on players, on wages, the fact that Spurs got this stadium going on in the background. If they can get in the Champions League again this season, I think that would be a really big achievement for them.
Just how important, Tom, in your opinion, is that top 4 finish in terms for the club with the stadium? Is it imperative that we finish in that top 4?
Well, it's not imperative, Spurs. If you ask from a financial point of view, it's not as if they've spent loads of money and they kind of have banked on the idea of finishing the Champions League. We all know that Daniel Levy wouldn't take those kind of risks. So it's not imperative financially, but I think if they want to make any kind of progress in the summer in terms of the kind of player they're going to go for, the Champions League is such a great character to bring in those kind of players, and I suspect this summer they might just change the philosophy a little bit on what they did last summer. I think Pochettino has sort of realised that the way the Champions League campaign kind of faltered so badly, I think he realises he just needs a bit more quality and a bit more strength and depth. And I think they're probably, looking back now, I think they were probably a bit too cautious last summer. So I think if they get in the Champions League again, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a few more statement signings before next season.
Are Barkley as a Zaha?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, they're interested in both of them. They fit the mould. Young British players. So certainly, the question always is, what is the asking price going to be, and what does the player want in terms of wages? If reports are to be believed, then Zaha has been offered a pretty big contract, or is about to be offered a big contract at Palace. And whether or not Spurs are prepared to match that, I don't know. And that remains to be seen. But there's definitely interest in both of them there. It just, as so often, it comes down to the bank sheet first thing.
Just on Burnley, Rick, can I just point out the one thing?
Yes.
We've been told for so long that our season would fall apart, according to so many in media and the pundits, that if they do without Kane, then their season is going to go completely south. And it's now 7 or 8 games without Kane. We still haven't lost without him, and our points per game is actually higher without Kane than it is with him. And I'm not going to sit here and try and be silly and say we don't miss Harry Kane, because it's a massive miss to us. We all know that he's such a talismanic figure for the club, and if you ask me, do you want Kane or not? We absolutely want Kane in the side. But, once again, other people stood up and showed for it when Kane wasn't there. And I think, I think Ian Wright particularly had said that without Harry Kane, Spurs will lose ground on the top six. And we've actually made up more ground without him on the top six or the other clubs around us. So, full credit to the players that have stood up and covered for him so well so far.
Yeah, it's been, like I say, a real collective squad performance at the moment. It's been absolutely superb. That is the Burnley review done. What we're going to do, we're going to go for a quick break, and then we're going to take your questions for tonight's panel. Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As always, we ask you to get your questions into us on a weekly basis, and you can do that by tweeting the e-Spurs Twitter account of @e_Spurs, leaving your tweet on anything THFC related, and with the hashtag eSpursPod. As always, guys, you've got into us in your droves. We're going to go through some questions tonight for tonight's panel. First question tonight we've got from one of our own, Mr. John Mannings. We'll ask this question to you, Jace, and he says, many of our own fans have hammered the club this season for our perceived lack of strength in depth with the current squad. However, we've only been able to field our strongest 11 of Lloris, Dyer, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Walker, Wanyama, Dembele, Rose, Dele, Eriksson and Kane twice this season, whilst using the 3-4-3 system, in brackets West Brom and Chelsea at home. We're second in the league, we have suffered a lot of injuries so far, and there's 18 Premier League clubs that would love to swap with us. So my question is the squad really that bad?
I said it all along, isn't it? I mean, people talk about our lack of game changers from the bench, our lack of pace from the bench, our lack of so many things from the bench. We haven't got this, we haven't got that. And John's right, there we are, sitting in second above so many teams that have apparently got all these players that we haven't got. I think, it shows great character from those that have come in, and the squad's going to be tested again. But, we can argue whether we strengthened right in last summer or not, but sometimes you have to put your hands up and say, give a pat on the back to each of those that have come in to do their job. And we might well have to change tactics and things like that. But pretty much everything that's been thrown at us this season, this squad has come up with an answer for. And, Heung-min Son, whether he should be starting, whether he makes the wrong decisions, we all know the criticisms in his game, but he scores his 15th goal of the season Saturday. And, sometimes we got to see some of the benefits of what we do have in the squad.
Indeed. And moving on to you, Ian, we've got a question here from Peli Ali at Janiad Lass. I hope I've pronounced that right. And he says, with Wanyama and Winks out injured, do you think we'll struggle to maintain a push for the title, especially since Dembele does struggle to play 2 games a week, so we're even more low on midfielders?
I go back to think what Will said earlier on about the injury situation. I think that if we can get to the stage where we can steer clear of any more injuries, I think that we shouldn't be too worried about what we've got in midfield, because if we can return to the midfield of Dyer and Dembele, and we can keep those two fit, then I'm just remembering how well they did for us last season. So I'm hopeful that we've still got enough strength in depth, and as John said in his question that Jason answered so succinctly, that I think we should be all right.
And moving on to you, Will, we've got a question here from Kerry Coys, Electric Eric. She asks, do you think we can get maximum points from our remaining games this season? And if so, is the title still within our grasp?
Good question. On paper, you'd like to think so. We've got a lot of the lower half of the table guys still to play. That said, we look back at the end of last season, and that was also the case. We had West Brom at home. We dropped points there with a draw. We were frustrated with that, and after that, heads dropped. So anything's possible in terms of the points. Yes, the maximum points are there for the taking. It's now, I think it's a psychological thing for them. If they can learn from the mistakes that they made last season, keep their heads up, keep fighting to the end. If they do have a glitch, the important thing is not to let their heads drop like they did against West Brom last season and then capitulate towards the end. So, yes, it's possible to get the maximum points. Totally relies on Chelsea dropping points. Realistically, whilst it was lovely to see them lose at the weekend to Palace, I don't see them doing that too often. Certainly not often enough for us to make ground on them. So, yeah, this weekend's results keeps things interesting, but whilst we can go out and get maximum points, I don't see the title really being a realistic option, given that that Chelsea, especially with the FA Cup, whoever wins that, obviously they may have the slight distraction of the cup final. So I don't know, it's Chelsea's for the taking. If they mess it up, then it's in our hands to capitalise on where they slip up. So yeah, no, I don't see it. I don't see the title happening, but I do see us certainly getting maximum points if we keep our heads high.
I completely agree with you. It is going to be a very, very tough ask. We're going to move it along to you, Tom. We've got a question here from Zoe Pearson at Z_Pearson CHFC. She asked the question, where is Dyer's best position? His versatility and movement of position did affect his form, but could that now be a strength in the running? What do you think, Tom?
I think his best position is midfield still. I think he thinks that as well. I think it's where he enjoys playing the most. I think sometimes in defence he has an error in him. You know, I mean, he's still a very good centre half, and he'll play very comfortably in most teams in the division at centre half. But I just think at the real top level and the level that Tottenham are aspiring to be at, I think actually he's a better midfielder. But you know, as I say, I think he's done a really good job this season switching into that back three, pretty seamlessly. And I think he can do a job there as well. But I think he prefers playing midfield, and I think that is his better position overall.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, like I say, we've seen him, like I say, Saturday. For me, it was one of his best performances of the season. He's put in there more of a natural position. You saw his class. Let's move it along back to you, Jace. Question here from Nick at iHawkNick, who says, goal of the season contenders so far. You got a pick, Jace?
Cool, that's a
good question.
That's a tough one, isn't it? Goal of the season contender. Sonny got a really good one against Swansea, didn't he? Thinking of Swansea coming up Tuesday with that. And he got the first, or was that the first or the second against Swansea at home?
Second,
with like a falling volley or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I still think one of my favourite goals of the season would be Harry Kane's penalty, because it meant that all those West Ham fans that had been sitting there singing it had been happening again were forced to sit there and watch those last 2 minutes and ended up sitting there watching Harry Kane's winner. So I'd actually go for a different type of goal. I'll go for Harry Kane's penalty winner against West Ham, because it was just one of the funniest moments of the season to look at that away end still full rather than they had been the previous year when they were escaped because they were already 4 down. So yeah, I'll go Harry Kane's penalty.
Fair enough. And coming to you, Ian, question here from Z-Man11215 at SpursDog1, who says, with injuries mounting, could we see a formation change from Poch?
That's a toughie, Rick. I'm just trying to think what he could go to. I'm just trying to think, would we have the personnel to go back to 4-4-2, or would we stick to the 4-2-3-1?
He's got that option, hasn't he, to bring Wimmer back, for instance, push Dyer into midfield and bring Wimmer. Although Carter Vickers on the bench Saturday and not Wimmer.
Yeah, I think Carter Vickers was on the bench. So
he could still do that.
He could. I could see. Yeah. So with Jason's help, I'd turn around and say that we could go back to 4-2-3-1, but I think that we could bring Wimmer back on and go for a 3-4-3. Just
a quick one on formation. I think Swansea have scored so many goals lately, haven't they? Looking for Llorente to use that strength in the air, and I think if you go to a 4, it gives Llorente far more chance to peel off onto Ben Davies as a normal left back, rather than if you've got those 3 central defenders in there. So I might, if it was me, I might still be tempted to keep 3 and just try and negate that big threat that Llorente's brought to them of recent times.
Very interesting one there to see. I mean, I say fascinating if he does change the formations. Let's bring it on to you, Will. Got a question here, jovial one. RAF Spurs, who asks, can you ask what about the time he rescued Ozzy in the Falkland Islands?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, as you might be aware, Ozzy, our dealers and Ricky Villa were involved in a bit of a car accident down there. It was a team effort. A lot of people don't realise actually there's still quite a large military presence out in the Falklands, up to several thousand Army, Navy, Air Force guys. Ricky Ozzy had a people carrier with about 5 other people, and they were down there filming a documentary for ESPN, I believe. Had a pretty bad car accident. I think Ozzy was driving, bashed his head, lost a lot of blood. We got word of it up at the RAF base there, and a big team effort. We hadn't got a clue who was in the vehicle at the time. We just heard there were some people out there. We assumed it was maybe some farmers or something like that. Scrambled the helicopter because we heard there's a head injury. Turned out it was Ozzy and Ricky out there. on the way back from doing some filming. Being a huge Spurs fan, I happened to be the one who was it was quite late at night. I was kind of the watchkeeper overseeing the shift. But the recovery effort was a huge team effort. We had search and rescue pilots out, scramble the helicopter to go pick him up. So the Air Force coming down there. We had Army, police and medics to go and visit him and apply first aid. So yeah, we managed to add a sort of a small part to play in the saving of Ozzy that day. So yeah, it's something that the RF Spurs like to bring up every now and then. But yeah, team effort from the Air Force. But I was lucky enough. I was in the privileged position to be able to lend a hand to a couple of our legends.
I hope you wouldn't have saved Tony Adams or Ron Harris or someone like that, mate.
No, we'd have taken the phones off the hook.
Brilliant little story there. Going to come back round to you, Tom. I've got a question here. Mike Webster at Webbo_73 who asks, Zaha, will Palace sell him to us even if they stay up? Do we want him? Now, I know earlier you kind of suggested that Spurs do have an interest in the player. How far does our interest go, do you think?
Well, that's the big money question, isn't it? How much would you pay for it? I mean, Spurs made an offer around sort of 12-13 million, didn't they, back in January, and that wasn't nearly enough. I think they know they'd be looking for sort of 25 plus at least, probably maybe even 30. And it just depends if Tottenham are prepared to go that far. I mean, he's definitely had a brilliant second half of the season. I mean, he's had a good season overall, but he's got better and better. I mean, you know, we saw how Berahino, for example, completely lost all form after he didn't get his move to Spurs, whereas Zaha's kind of gone the other way and he's really upped his game. Whether or not he's playing for a move, I don't know. Maybe Palace fans would disagree with that. But, I mean, you know, as I said, I think that, you know, there's definitely interest there in him, and I think he would be a good signing for Spurs. You know, young, fast. You know, he's the kind of guy who can make things happen in the final third. He's got that kind of extra little bit of zip that perhaps Tottenham sometimes lack. But it's just a matter of whether or not he becomes a bit too expensive. And then there is the question of wages. You know, if Palace make him a big offer, he might even have to take a wage cut to come and play for Spurs. Because I don't really see Pochettino agreeing to Zaha being on the same kind of salary as Kane and Lloris, who are the kind of top earners at Spurs at the moment. So it might come down to the player as well. But I'm sure it'll be one of those ones that probably drags on through the summer and right to the end of August as always.
Yeah, fascinating. And it's funny because, like I say, I put out 6 months ago myself on Twitter about Zaha, and I got absolute pelters for it. And suddenly, like I say, the bloke is on form. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, there's definitely seems to be more of an end product there from him. And I think one thing, if you ask any Spurs fan at the moment, what we seem to be missing is pace. I mean, we are craving it. And with the loss of Eric Lamela, you would maybe argue a lack of creativity. Sticking with you, Tom, for a second, Lamela, we've heard his surgery has gone successful. I think Poch mentioned today that as well. Is he going to be a Spurs player next season, Tom? What's your gut feeling on it? Because there seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, a little bit of a disagreement between the medical staff and Lamela at the very start of it all. Is that right?
I think Tottenham at first underestimated the injury. When he first got injured, it was in training back in October, and I remember a few days after it happened, we were in the press conference with Pochettino, and he told us it was just a minor hip injury. You know, that he'd be back within a couple of weeks, and I really think they didn't think it was as serious as it actually has become. And I think Lamela, because the club indicated that to him, he got more and more frustrated as he wasn't able to kind of heal as quickly as he was hoping. And then obviously he had some problems with his brother and things, and went back to Rome. It's been a really difficult few months for him. Pochettino was pretty incredulous the other day when he was asked about the possibility that Lamela was kind of looking for a move. But there has always been this sort of feeling with Lamela that maybe he's not 100% happy in London, and that his kind of spiritual home still remains in Italy. And I think there is some truth to that. It just depends really in the summer whether or not they think that, you know, they can get the kind of money they want for him. And also, I mean, there's no doubt that before he got injured, he was playing brilliantly for Tottenham. Yeah. He was one of the key players in the side. So it's just whether or not they think they can get him fit and happy again for next season. My gut feeling is probably that they will accept probably an offer. I think they might decide that enough is enough, really, after a sort of slightly complicated 2 or 3 years with Lamela. I think they might think that now is the time to kind of cash in. But I wouldn't say that with much confidence. I think he could easily be there as well next season. I think it depends on who comes in and what kind of offer they make.
Yeah, he's again another player that on his day, he is a great player, and I think it's funny because he does seem to split opinion across, like I say, the Border Spurs fans. It's amazing, really, but he has shown the progression, an upward curve season upon season. I'd love to see the club keep hold of him, but I mean, ultimately, I think, like you've just said there, Tom, it's down to whether the player's happy and if a bid comes in. Do you think, Tom, very quickly, would we get our full money back on him?
Well, I think the market's inflated so much. I mean, when Spurs paid 30 million for him, when was it? 3 years ago now? We're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 years ago, that was really big money. Whereas nowadays, like any kind of attacking midfielder who's got any kind of talent at all is sort of 20 million plus. So I think they probably would make their money back on him. And I also think, that, as you said, he's really come on. It'd be a shame in a way if they let him go, because he just seems to be becoming the player perhaps that they thought they were buying when they did spend so much money on him. So yeah, I think they would get good money for him. But I'd be sad to see him go, because I think as I say, he's been a key player for Spurs, and I think in the next 2 or 3 years, if he stayed and he stays fit, I think he could continue to get better and better.
With just Eric Lamela, I mean, it was sad to see the picture of him after surgery yesterday in the hospital bed, but in a strange way, I was kind of pleased to see it, because I think the boy took a lot of flack earlier in the season when people saying he's only, he's too lazy and he's only not playing because he's depressed because of his dog, and we even had some people coming out with maybe he's failed a drugs test, and some of the speculation on that about his mental health was well and truly over the top. And I think yesterday, you now realise that whatever was going on off the pitch, the reason he wasn't playing games was he wasn't fit, and he picked an injury up, and it's ended up with him being, in need of surgery. So I think all those people that would have sent messages to his Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts criticising him for his state of mind should be ashamed of themselves, and they owe the bloke a proper apology.
Yeah, and fingers crossed, like I say, Lamela will do his talking on the pitch next season in a Spurs shirt. Guys, thank you very much for your questions this week. As always, if you want to get involved in the Twitter questions on a weekly basis, all you've got to simply do is send your tweet in to #e_Spurs. Leave your tweet and leave it with #eSpursPod. That just, again, guys, if you want to send us over a tweet, questions every week, all you've got to do is go to our Twitter account of @e_Spurs, leave your tweet with the #eSpursPod. Let's move quickly on, guys, to a preview of the game on Wednesday, Swansea. Let's come first to you, Will. There seems to be an upward turn in their fortune under Paul Clement. They seem to be playing well. Granted, they drew at home against Middlesbrough on Sunday. It's going to be a tough game up there, though, isn't it?
It will, yeah, definitely, without any shadow of a doubt. And they've got the likes of Sigurdsson as well, who always puts in a good performance against us. But that said, we grabbed out a great performance, having a good 3 points at Burnley. We go into it just as confident, if not more so than them. So yeah, it's completely achievable. 3 points there. We have got slight frailties with all the injuries we're picking up at the moment. We've lost Winks. Wanyama's probably going to be a doubt. Whether Walker's back in, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a tough one to go away there. Wet Wednesday night. Yeah, I would expect a win, but on their day they can grind out a draw, maybe even surprise us with a win. So who knows? I'd like to think we can grind out a similar sort of performance to the one we put in against Burnley. Take the confidence from that and get something from the game. So yeah, it's completely achievable. Fingers crossed. Will, score? What do you think? Good question. I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs. Sigurdsson getting theirs, and potluck of who gets ours at the moment depends on Ali and Ericsson to get the goals. There you go. You heard it here first from Will. Coming on to you, Ian. What do you make of that game? It's going to be tough, isn't it, Wednesday night?
It is, but I agree with what's been said previously. We've got to go up there with confidence, and as Jason sent out, a couple of days ago, we win the game, and other results go another way, and it makes for yet another interesting discussion on next week's pod. So, I think that we can go there and win. And I was going to go for 2-1. It'll be an interesting journey down there on Wednesday. So bring it on. Yeah, I'll be at Swansea on Wednesday. Looking forward to it.
Brilliant, great to hear. And coming to you, Tom, what do you think of the game?
I think they'll win comfortably. 0-3, I think they'll win.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Swansea are the kind of team that really give Tottenham much problems these days. Maybe I'll rue what I'm saying here, but I think Tottenham will win fairly comfortably. I just think that Chelsea might kind of steady the ship with at least a draw at home, and any hope of a kind of Chelsea collapse might be squandered early on. But you never know. I think the title race will be decided in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because I think Spurs have got some good fixtures, Chelsea have got some tough ones, and Tottenham play, I think, before Chelsea in the next couple of weeks, which might help them out a little bit. But if they can't kind of reduce that gap to sort of less than 5 points in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think they'll struggle, because I think Spurs have got quite a tough kind of last 3 or 4 games, whereas Chelsea have got a pretty smooth run-in. So I think it's all to be decided in the next couple of weeks. Yeah,
very much so. And Jay's final words with you?
Yeah, I think we'll go there and get the result that we need. I think, as I say, for me, keep the back three, make sure we don't allow Llorente to peel off, give us a danger, look after Sigurdsson, don't give away silly set pieces around the edge of the box, because we know Gylfi's got excellent delivery of those. And the most important thing for me will be stay patient, because particularly if we get news of Manchester City having taken the lead or something from Stamford Bridge, then everyone instantly goes into, right, we're right back in that title race if we win it, and that anxiety sometimes spreads onto the pitch, and we know how we struggled with that last year. So let's just stay patient, turn all the radios and mobile phones off, and just concentrate on our own game, go and win the game, and then whatever else happens over the next few weeks happens.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Jay, scoreline for you?
I'll go 2-0 again.
2-0, okay, 2-0. I want to join you on that. I do, like I say, fingers crossed, go along with that scoreline. I think it's doable. Guys, thank you very much for tonight. Let's go. Will, thanks so much for coming on.
Ricky, thanks very much.
And Tom, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
No problem at all. Thank you. I enjoyed it. Cheers.
Brilliant, fantastic. And Jay, thanks as always.
No problem, mate. And best wishes to Ian down there at Swansea tomorrow.
Yes, and Ian, great to have you back with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, guys. I've really enjoyed tonight.
Pleasure as always. Guys, we're going to be back on Thursday evening for another special e-Spurs Extra Time podcast. So we'll be reviewing the Swansea game, hopefully looking back on a huge 3 points and previewing Watford at the weekend. All we've got time for now is to say, come on you Spurs!
We won't give it up, we're gonna bring the cup back on to White Hart.